was talking about the How to Train a Dragon film, I brought up the idea of me sort of talking more about my own personal interests. Sorry, just kicked my drawers. My own personal interests and kind of just talking into the void about them. So here is the natural conclusion of that, where I am going to be talking about Hunger Games books I think would be interesting from a lore perspective. This kind of comes from one, I did a TikTok a few months back that I'm probably going to be using things from that I mentioned. Not that I mentioned, but like that I brought up in that TikTok, where during like my big obsession with Hunger Games a couple months ago, that's kind of coming back, I made a video similar to this, and I'll kind of just be expanding the points on that bit in a YouTube video. And also because I've seen a lot of people saying that they think Suzanne Collins might be writing a third book for like the prequel trilogy that's going on. So since we've had Pallid of Songbirds and Snakes, and then Sunrise on the Reaping, that there might be a third one coming out. And I'm not trying to say that I think that I know what that book will be. There are plenty of other people that are way better at figuring that stuff out than I am. That's not what this is. This is me rambling about books that I think from a lore perspective might be interesting. So this is not the missing piece in the prequels. This is hey, I think this would be a fun story. Couple of things before we get started. One, if you can hear my fan in the background, it's so warm in England right now. This is kind of the coolest day we've had in a while. I'm still dying. I had other things I was going to say. Oh, two, if my microphone cuts out, I've got to charge it, so I'm kind of praying that it makes it through this video. And three, as per usual, I kind of ramble in a very nonsensical way. I also talk to the point where I'm kind of out of breath from rambling too much, so apologies in advance if that annoys you. I think that's everything, so I guess I'll get started. I got my handy dandy notebook, yet again. I feel like this is my notebook will be making more and more appearances if I keep going down this route of rambling about things I enjoy. Oh, actually, also another thing before we begin. This is more like a rant about the fandom. In the Hunger Games fandom, lots of times when people are like, oh, I think this would be interesting, I think that, it's like, oh, you're no better than a capital citizen. Look, I get where it's coming from. I know the point of the Hunger Games. Everyone else kind of knows the point of the Hunger Games. I'm not sat here trying to say, oh, I want to see more kids die. No. I'm sat here thinking, I think this would be an interesting story to learn about these characters. And also, a lot of people are like, oh, you just want to watch the kids die, blah, blah, blah. No. In the universe, all these things have already happened. Why not just write the books about them? They're probably never going to be written. I think it's just fun to engage in like creative hypotheticals within a fandom. And it's not fun to be in a fandom where you're constantly being policed for just thinking something would be interesting, you know? I think that makes sense. I kind of did a bit of a longer rant on the TikTok that I said. But yeah, just to cover basis, I'm probably gonna get called a capital citizen by someone, but oh well. So, I guess starting off, I have some honourable mentions, which is Finnick's and Joanna's games. Personally, I don't see the need for them to be full-length books. I think they're amazing characters, don't get me wrong, I love Finnick and Joanna. I just feel like we know a lot about their stories already, and I don't know exactly what having a book would do for them as characters. Also, don't want to watch 14-year-old Finnick go through all that, personally. So I would be quite happy to never get either of their books, because, like, I don't think it would expand upon much, but that's just me. Kind of the same for some of the other tribute games as well. I guess, like, I don't think we would necessarily need characters such as BT's or YRS's games. I think they would be interesting, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like we know a lot. Well, maybe not BT so much, but like, you know what I mean. Okay. Moving on to the actual books I think would be fun. I feel like fun is the wrong word. I need like a thesaurus. Interesting? If I accidentally say fun, I mean interesting. But I say interesting so much in my day-to-day that I'm kind of trying to replace it with fun. So yeah, I hope you get what I mean. But number one, I think The Dark Days, a book all about the Dark Days, would be really interesting. What I've written down here is, so the questions I think would be interesting for this is, what was life like before the Hunger Games? I think we know that obviously the rebellion happened. We know that the districts like were rising up against the capital, but I feel like we don't know exactly what triggered it, right? Like, was it like, what was the final straw that broke the camel's back that led to all that happening? Yeah, so the second thing is what finally caused the rebellion. I think it would be so interesting to see life in Panem before the Hunger Games, before districts were like fully cut off from each other. Like, how much did people interact? What was it like in the capital? How bad was it in the districts? Did it get worse or better actually? Like, did the capital with the Hunger Games actually improve life in the districts, or did they make it worse? Like, I think it would just be interesting from just to have a full history of the country. Who are the important figures? Because obviously this would take place before most of the main figures that we know. I mean, we know that Coriolanus Snow's father was a figure in the Dark Days. We know that Dean Highbottom was. But who were the other ones? Who were the district rebels who like really made a name for themselves that were really important? Because here and there you could maybe get a reference to, I don't know, the Covey, or a child here that like might have been one of the people in the 10th Hunger Games. But like, who were the important figures and what happened to them? And then also, how did it actually end, and who was involved in the creation of the Treaty of Treason? I'd also like to point out, I have my Hunger Games books behind me. I have not read them fully back to front, had them memorized, blah blah blah. I'm not like a diehard, I can recite the whole series to you person. So if I do ask any questions that are obvious answers and you're sat there going, oh, but it's in this book on this chapter, please let me know. I don't have this entirely memorized. I like engaging in fandom stuff. So if I bring something up and you're like, but that has an answer already, it's in this book, please let me know, because I am more than happy to accept that I don't have these books completely nailed down, and I might bring up a point that is completely moot. Moot. I think I know what I meant. So the next book I think would be quite interesting is the first Hunger Games. This is the one where I think people are going to start saying I'm like a capital citizen. But no, my reason for wanting the first Hunger Games isn't because I want to watch that, it's because I want to see the characterization and who the characters were and what they were like. So, like, for example, who were the first tributes ever reaped? Was it random? Like, was it actually everyone's names are in a bowl? Like, how did they set it up? How was the first Hunger Games sort of created? Like, were people sort of brought forward randomly? Like, was it rebellion leaders, their children were the district tributes that were brought forward, or was it actually random from the bowls like we see in the films and the books? And how many of them had participated in the rebellion? Because obviously the oldest of the tributes would have been 18, they might have been rebels themselves, and the youngest would have been 12. Like, I think I know what I mean. Like, were the tributes for the first Hunger Games random, or was there a political reason for them? Did any of them know each other? Like I said, I think if I'm correct in my memory, back before like the Hunger Games were fully a thing, districts could mingle more. So for example, did like the District 9 female know the District 4 male? Like, maybe they travelled there, they'd not grown up exactly, but like in travels they'd met this person and they might remember them. Like, were there inter-district friendships or relationships even? Yeah, so I think that would be just fascinating from a sort of character relationship standpoint. Like, you know, the diagrams of like how characters are connected, and typically in the Hunger Games they're only really connected to their other districts. Like, I think it would be fun if like the diagram was like that, because also just be so, because obviously we always love when Katniss and Rue get to know each other because it's breaking the district boundaries. I think it would be so cool, interesting. I feel like I'm saying interesting too much. Like, it would be fascinating to watch if that happened with multiple of the characters in this. Also just heartbreaking. Did they all make it to the arena? So as we know in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, not all of them used to get to the arena, and I'm curious of how many of the original 24 did. Did any of them, like Dill, have something like tuberculosis and die on the way there? Did peacekeepers kill any of them like they did Brandy after she killed Arachne? Obviously it wouldn't have been like a bomb going off, but were there things from before they even got there that meant that not all of them made it? Who was the first ever Hunger Games death, and who was the first killer? I think having that information would be just, I don't know, like, not powerful exactly, but just having the first thing would be so, like, and why aren't they remembered? Because obviously the first to 10th Hunger Games no one really knows much about. I mean, we know them now, but there's just such mystery around them that I don't know, I just really want to know from a lore perspective, what were they like? And how long did it take them to start killing? And then how long did it last? Because obviously, there's no precedent for this beforehand. None of these kids know what the Hunger Games is. They've just all been rounded up, and for the first time ever, they're being told, hey, you need to get rid of all these people So like, yeah, sorry, it just occurred to me that on YouTube I probably can't say half of these words, but like I'm not trying to make money from this anyway, so yeah, like how long did it take? Did it take them like a day? Did they sit there for ages and it was really boring? Did someone have to intervene? Like, did a peacekeeper start shooting and then they started to kill each other? Like, I'm just so curious, because obviously these, like, if you imagine yourself being rounded up with all these people and you're the first ever people that are participating in it, it would take such a lot to make you think that this is actually something you had to do. And then once they did start to actually play the games, how long would they have lasted? Would it have been drawn out, or would they have just tried to get it over with as quick as possible? So yeah, I think the first games would be quite just so interesting to have. Third thing that I brought up, so obviously beforehand I said that I didn't think any of the like most of the other tributes that we know, or like the victors that we know, games would have been interesting. My exception to that is Mags. I love Mags, and I think Mags, just because of her placement in the timeline. So it's the game just after Lucy Gray's, right? Like, she's the victor of the 11th Hunger Games, she's in the Capitol Zoo. Did she know Lucy Gray? Like, did she have any memory of the girl that sang in the arena? And how much, like, between the games, between the 10th and 11th, did they change? Did they still have mentors, for instance? Were the mentors the, like, Capitol citizens or whatever? Did they keep the betting? Did they take that away and then bring that back later? So yeah, did they have the Capitol mentors again? Anyone remembering Lucy Gray? And if they did, were they still able to talk about her only a year later? Or was it, like, the second she disappeared, it was banished from everyone's memory? Like, you can't talk about Lucy Gray. Who was her district partner? Purely because, if I remember correctly, in Sunrise on the Reaping, she says that the one thing she wanted to do was protect her district partner. So I'm curious about who he might have been. Like, was he really young? Was it someone she knew already? I haven't fully read Sunrise on the Reaping, so that information might be there already. Do not yet. Also, she was the first sort of celebrity victor with a victor's tour. So who sort of decided that? Was that a Coriolanus Snow thing? Was that, like, who came up with the idea of the victor's tour? How did the first one go? And then how did the districts respond to this new thing in the Hunger Games? Because I'm imagining it wouldn't have gone very well, but it would have just been, it was such a, like, obviously it's a new thing. Like, how did the first victor's tour go, and how was it handled? Also expands upon District 4 lore. I quite like District 4. I mean, I live in a seaside town. I quite like the sea. And also, this is just my own personal headcanon that I see a few other people have. Did you know Coral and Mizzen? Purely because, obviously, just a year between them, I love the headcanon that Mizzen was like her younger brother or her cousin or something. It makes me cry a lot, but I just feel like if she, like, District 4 is meant to be really big, obviously, but if she just knew either Coral or Mizzen, I think it would be just a fun, not fun, but like, yeah, like a fun callback to Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Next page. Oops. Okay, fourth book that I think would be interesting. The 25th Hunger Games, so the first Quarter Quell. Because if I'm correct, we don't know much about it. We know that this is one where districts had to vote on who they were sending in. So did each district have a strategy? Did they send the people that they disliked? Did they send the people they thought would have the best chance of winning? Does that mean most of the tributes would have been like 18? Or did they send like the most annoying kids, or the ones that they thought would die quite quickly? Like, did they send a bunch of 12-year-olds with tuberculosis, you know? Oh, did careers exist before this, or did this inspire them? So, again, this might be something that's already answered in the books and I just don't remember. But obviously District 1, 2, and 4 in the books are career districts. So, like, people train, they volunteer, whatever. Did having a game where you had to send people specifically make some of the districts realize that that could be a good idea, to actually train certain kids up to volunteer? Like, was the 25th Games the beginning of the actual careers? Because obviously we've seen in Ballad of Songbirds, like, a careers path kind of forming with Coral, Mizzen, and Tanner. But when did it become an actual thing? And did this inspire it? Who won the first Quarter Quell, obviously, who was the victor, and what happened to them? Because I don't think they've been mentioned at all. And if not, then why? Like, why do we know so little about the first Quarter Quell? I mean, we have the books for the second Quarter Quell, Haymitch's. We have the book for the third Quarter Quell, Katniss's, and obviously didn't end the way they wanted it, but you know, why don't we have much knowledge on the first quarter quell. It's like the only quarter quell that's missing. And I've seen people talk about which book they think might be coming up, and this is the closest I can get. I feel like a book on the first quarter quell would make sense with Suzanne Collins' like Rule of Three. I've seen a lot of people say the Rule of Three is really important with Suzanne Collins books. I feel like having the first out of the 3 quarter quells would complete something like that, so I don't know. And also just what was the capital like at this point? Because obviously we've seen really late in the capital's history, not late in the capital's history, that doesn't make sense. Like late on in how the capital is with the colourful clothes, how Effie dresses, everything like that. We've seen early on, after the Dark Days and the 10 Hunger Games, because it's not exactly the midpoint. Also, like I said, I haven't fully read, like, Sunrise on the Reef thing, so I'm not 100% sure. Like, we've had 25-point intervals. So yeah, what was it like, and how much had it changed since the 10th? Because it's only 15 years later, which is a considerable amount of time. But, you know, a lot can happen, and I'm just curious. This next one is less of like a novel and more of an anthology, I guess. But it is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes Mentors. And so that is what I have written down, but to expand upon that, what I mean is sort of a collection of short stories on each of the mentors and sort of what they went on to do and what their thoughts of the games they participated in were. So yeah, like, obviously out of the 24 of them, it's like 3 or 4 of them died, I think. So there was Arachne, there was the 2 District 9 ones, whose names I can't remember. I think that's all the ones that died, I might be wrong. Maybe there was a few more. But then obviously Clemencia, I'm sorry if I get the names wrong, got injured and everything. So what did each of them go on to do? I'm pretty sure Lysistrata, her family, was involved in the medical industry, so did she go into medicine at all? Did any of them, such as Persephone or Lysistrata, regret their involvements in the games and in the future try to stop them? So I like to imagine Persephone did care for Mizzen. I don't know why, I think it's just, I've read too many sort of like headcanons that people have of it. But Lysistrata shows actual care for Jessup in the books and is actively upset when he dies and she participates in his death. I can't imagine that she would have necessarily... There was a chance she just repressed it all and continued with her life. But the bigger and bigger the Hunger Games became, did she not try and stop them at any point? Did she not speak out against them at any point? Like I said, her family was in the medical business. Did she defect and go to District 13 because she couldn't stand what the capital was doing? Or did she become an AVOX, like, for being a traitor to the capital? Or was she simply killed? Was she one of the people that Snow had poisoned? So how much did tributes impact the rest of them? So the rest of their lives as well is another one. So an example of that, and this is obviously a very loose connection, the Heavensbees. We have Hilarious Heavensbee, who honestly don't really care about Wovi all that much, it seems. But then later on we have Plutarch Heavensbee. Now, did Plutarch read about Hilarious's involvement in the games and that's what caused his rebellious sort of instinct? Or, like, further down in the future of Hilarious's life, did he ever look back and go, oh wait, like, you know, so we have these characters whose descendants we kind of know about. How did it impact upon all of that? And did any of them sort of after a few years go, wait, I wish this had never happened type thing, if that makes sense. And yeah, like I said, did any of them get poisoned by Snow or turned into AVOXs? I feel like they're all too high profile to become AVOXs, but also that feels like that would also encourage them to be AVOXs because you can't just kill all of them, but I don't know. Okay, book 6 I think would be interesting. And again, one where I might get called a capital person is A Tribute Who Doesn't Survive. I don't know if this would be a book that I would want to sort of start off with people, like if it was to come out, would it be advertised that way? But the reason I think this would be an interesting book is it'd be interesting to have a point of view of a person who doesn't survive, as we would grow to care for them, only for them to like not make it to the end, such as our other protagonists like Canis or I guess Coriolanus. But yeah, so partially because I feel like Suzanne would write an absolutely incredible narrative like that, and the final pages or chapters would be gut-wrenching. But also, right, because from a fandom point of view, how would the fandom react? Because we grow to care for this one specific tribute, right? Would we be angry at the victor if we knew who the victor was because our tribute didn't survive? It would put us in the place of a capital citizen, you know? Would we sort of be happy when our tribute killed more people only for them to die in the end? Would we find it... Like, watching people's reactions to it is part of what drives me to think this would be an interesting book, because the fandom is already sort of divisive enough with stuff that I think it would just be fascinating to actually put the fandom in the viewpoint of the Capitol, sort of dealing with the fact that our tribute didn't survive, you know? Book 6 I think would be interesting is a victor from like a more unknown game. A victor from a more unknown game. Also maybe from a more unknown district, such as District 9 or District 6. Purely so we can then learn more about that district as a whole. But also sort of, what does a normal Hunger Games look like? What I mean by that is one where maybe rebellion isn't the main focus point of everything. Because obviously later on, trying to end the Hunger Games, rebellion, all that is a massive point, and Plutarch sort of says that he's been trying to find people to end it for a while. But what does one where, because I can't imagine every single Hunger Games had a rebellious streak in them. Some of them would have just happened, and they would have had elements of them that I'm sure could be rebellious, but it wasn't all of them were trying to end everything. So what did a normal Hunger Games look like, and then what happened to this tribute? Like, why do we not learn about them? Obviously Katniss is an unreliable narrator, but if it was from an earlier games, like, did they live the rest of their life? Did they die quite young? If it's from a later game, how did they handle being sort of, you know, paraded around and all that? Also, just because it's my favourite number, I said I feel like the 19th would be interesting. That's just because 19 is my favourite number, so there's no actual rhyme or reason to that. The 8th book is, I think this would just be, this is going to sound very fanfiction-y, but a book of the names of all of the tributes throughout the Hunger Games history. So this is less of a book and more of a list, but it's kind of a list of all the tributes that there were, and like if they were a victor, like who they died to, and like a description of them. It's very fanfiction-y, but I love little stuff like that. Like, this is purely, I like that type of thing. I don't know if it's anyone else's kind of thing, but just, I don't know, I think it would be quite sweet, because obviously in the Hunger Games the whole thing is, oh, we don't learn the names of a lot of these people. There's like 1,600 plus tributes that we never know the identities of, and that's really sad. So I think just having a book with all their names would be quite, I don't know, it would just, yeah, be quite sweet, I think. Number 9 is the loved one of a tribute. So either a family member or a friend, or maybe actually like a partner of theirs, who doesn't get sent to the Hunger Games, but who has to watch their loved one participate in the Hunger Games. So what is life like in the district during the Hunger Games? Do they get, like, do places shut down? Do they still go to school? All that sort of stuff. I think that does get touched upon in the Hunger Games first book, but I can't quite remember. But also, what is it like actually watching their loved one have to participate in the Hunger Games? Do they actively hate the other tributes? Do they dislike the other districts? Do they, like, how do they feel when their child or their friend or their lover does kill another person, if they do end up killing someone? And also, how do they feel if maybe their loved one comes back a victor or doesn't come back at all? Like, what is life like for the people who aren't actively participating in the games, is what I'm thinking. Then finally, a book from the perspective of a capital citizen. I don't know when in the timeline this would be. Again, with a lot of these, I feel like where in the history of Panem it falls would impact upon it. But what does an average capital citizen like think of the games? Do they know how much they're being lied to? Do they, so for example, like, I guess with reality shows in the real world, I guess like Love Island, there's plenty of people who don't care about it, like myself, and plenty of people who put a lot of investment into it. Are there capital citizens who don't care about the Hunger Games? Are there capital citizens where it's like that's their whole personality? So yeah, what a day-to-day average capital citizen that maybe goes to school or goes to a 9-to-5 job, if they really have those, what do they think of them? What are they taught about the tributes? Because obviously we have the interviews with them. Do they get any extra sort of information? Do they actually care about it? Does it impact their choice upon choosing who to sponsor? And do they realise how edited the games are? And for example, if someone does, are we maybe then watching the perspective of someone who defects to District 13? What is life like in the capital on a day-to-day basis? So like I said, just a day-to-day life, like maybe the Hunger Games is on, maybe it's during like the winter, so there's no Hunger Games. What is it actually like living in the capital? Is it as idealistic as everyone in the district seems to think it might be? Or I guess not Katniss per se, but like, is it as glamorous as it always looks? And then also, do they, like, obviously I think we have the answer for a bit of this, but like, do they actually care for their favourite tributes, or do they just view them as like a trophy? So, because there must be some capital citizens, I think, who sort of do see them as people, but maybe lesser than the capital. But I don't know, I just think that'd be interesting. Yeah, that's all the points I really had. Like I said, this is not a typical video for me. Also, the sun has just come out and I'm being slightly blinded. But I'm also aware that, I guess, like, I don't know the Hunger Games inside and out. Like, I don't have all the books memorized. I might have, like I said, touched upon things that we have the answers to and I just don't remember. Yeah, I don't know how much more of these sort of, like, just yapping about my interests into the void type thing I'll do. But Ballad of Songbirds recently got put on Netflix in England, and I've been rewatching it because I'm quite obsessed with that film. It's my favourite of the Hunger Games trilogy? Favourite of the Hunger Games series? Jesus, I can't speak. I haven't fully read Sunrise on the Reaping yet, but again, so far, Ballad of Songbirds is my favourite. I think I just love the aesthetic of it a lot, and the fact that we bonded with the other tributes so much. I'm sure eventually I'll read through and I might have different opinions on it, but because this is like my current interest, is like, well, what better to yap about in a video, you know? Yeah, that's kind of everything I have to say. Let me know if you guys think any of these would be interesting, or if there was a book that you wish would be sort of made, what you would want it to be about, and also what you think, if Suzanne is writing a new book, you think that will be, because I've seen some people say maybe the 25th Games, like I think, or maybe about Plutarch. Yeah, until then, I hope to see you guys in the next one, and I hope you're well. Bye!